Kevin L says the lack of trailers is something to be worried about, and people have already picked apart the existing trailers. The main thing that they got out of this is that AGS hates skirts. So it's regarding Blue Protocol again, which is not a good thing. Cosmetics are potentially big money makers, and out of one of the first things that comes to mind is no skirts. This is already going to cause a lot of people to be wary. NFTs already exist in these kind of games as cash shop items that are traded in the marketplace. Few games actually use it officially because they don't want to encourage RMT. So it can be used as a way to make gold or take gold and currency out of the circulation with a proper tax on the transactions. Meanwhile, the company will earn a bit of money on each transaction if they use real money to do it. The question is whether or not that this will happen enough. Until those NFTs actually get moved between games, I'm just going to assume that they can't be moved. However, there are still things that people are wary of and stay away from. NFTs are one of them. So it's best not to mention at all if you want your game to succeed. Even if you allow RMT, don't call it an NFT. Call it RMT instead and use it as a way to control botting while encouraging a closed economy. Keep it to loot boxes if you have since the average player can't wail for the top items in loot boxes. What do you think, Chris?
I love the idea that the worst problem with the game is whether or not there's skirts. Like I adore that world. If that's literally the worst thing that we have with the game, like that's amazing to me. If the worst thing that you can leverage against an MMO is that it doesn't have fishing, right? Any truly optional secondary system. There's no flaws with the base combat system that you have to engage with to get through the base gameplay. There's no issues logging in or getting through a launcher. There's no issues with base monetization and the game just delivering on the promise that is the description on the box, like the very base fundamental thing. There's no issue with like the story just ends without any meaningful conclusion. Like I love the idea that any secondary system is the failure point because it means that we're already at a point where all of the primaries have been met. So when we look at something like Anthem, which can't even just like keep the base game online, like that whole process, like Anthem didn't die because they didn't have skirts. Like that's what a great place to be in. So if AGS is somebody that hates skirts, they're just anti-skirt. Like they're pro pants. Ankles should touch cuffs or it should be shorts. Legs should be separate. Like that's fine. Like if that's where we're at, if AGS is the official leg separatist and they don't allow legs to be in any shared space, no kilts, no skirts, no dresses, like what a great place to be. It's weird, but what a great place to be because it means everything else is going wrong. Or is going right, excuse me. But when we talk about like NFTs, which is the bigger subject here, like that's the headline, right? AGS hates skirts. Well, I'll click on that. The actual headline, the actual meat of this is about NFTs and should games have NFTs? My view on NFTs is I have yet to see anybody do anything that really makes NFTs move anything forward. The idea of NFTs being something that I could collect and it has value because there's a limited quantity, that's not NFTs. That's just collectibles. And that's been around forever. And if you want to know ones that are worth millions of dollars, go to your local museum and try to touch any of the paintings. Like it's like the idea that there is something out there that there is a limited quantity of and it drives value from its rarity because it is desirable and there's just not more of them. That's not new. So what NFTs promised is because they were so digital, keep in mind that having limited edition FOMO-based things within video games like MMOs has been around for as long as there's been MMOs. We have time exclusive and amounts in Final Fantasy 14. We have them in games. Is the idea that they're transferable and that the publisher is going to make money off of that. And I haven't seen anything where that really works. Like best case, it's tradable for gold and then they can pull a piece of the gold out, but the gold is a mix. The gold doesn't really generate real money, because as far as I can tell, most of the token systems that are successful are pinning their token on an exchange where it varies. When you look at something like World of Warcraft or EVE Online, my understanding is those systems aren't just printing currency. There are people that are buying tokens with in-game currency, and there are people that are buying tokens with real money, and they're exchanging. And so the exchange is following like a supply-demand model.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not just like spiking inflation. So I don't really see how NFTs benefit there either. So the question for me is not whether or not like NFTs lock out somebody who has a lot of money, or they only benefit whales, or they are anti-botter. It's what does it do that any existing system can't already do? Like at this point, that's a value proposition that even tells me how an NFT does anything good.
And with how that they've already been received and people are skeptical of them, labeling anything, hey, we're going to add that automatically is like setting you several steps back. Even if, let's say, the theoretical possibility of a system comes into play that benefits the gamer, the company, and everybody's like, yay, it's almost maybe better at this point to just rebrand that aspect of it and make it something completely different in its own. And then behind the scenes, yes, it's driven off of the blockchain and, yada, yada. But I wouldn't
call theirs.
What's up?
What does CSGO call theirs? They have a tradable skin economy.
Yeah.
I don't think that.
Right. But you can't take that skin and apply it to Blue Protocol. You can't take that skin and apply it to these other games, which is this theoretical thing that the NFT bros like propose. Like, oh, and honestly,
these games can't launch with their own assets on day one.
Right. I could see like you brought up examples of like where NFT technology could be interesting is like in ticket sales for events, that if you want to go and, resell those, then a cut is going back to the event holder, as opposed to like right now, they release the tickets, they get bought up by bots, and then they sold the tickets for $30 and the bots are making all the money off the show, in that regards. And so I could see like examples that, some of these things could come around to apply, but I have yet to see or hear any like actual practical use case that makes sense and has value. But I do believe Kevin's right in this regards, especially when you think of NFTs like RMT. Only the NFT part, I think, means it's transferable outside of this ecosystem. RMT is very, obviously that has that similar connection. Like you are spending money, and then if the company themselves gets in that and helps them manage that transaction, they're both combating like the the bots and the fake RMTs and the risking your account RMTs, and they're also being able to profit off of that. Something like with the WoW token. You have any thoughts on that?
So the problem with the WoW token is all the WoW token is doing is scraping off of a transaction that would normally happen in a back alley. Mm-hmm. So basically, I farm up 10,000 gold because I just like playing and I end up with it, and I don't want the gold for anything. Brian doesn't have a lot of time to play, and he wants something that costs 10,000 gold, or he likes having gold around to buy raid consumables or whatever. And he doesn't have time to farm up the gold, but he wants the results of the gold. Brian and I go out to lunch, and he says, hey, bud, I'll pay for your sandwich if you give me your gold. Great. That happens. He pays for my sandwich. Next time we log in, I hand him the gold. That's RMT. That's already happening. Third-party sellers are doing this with the risk of scams and stuff taking place, but it's identical. It's just now happening between strangers. All the token is in theory doing, outside of the fact that they're not meeting, it's not one-to-one, is there's basically an amalgamation of people buying tokens, and there's an amalgamation of people that are paying cash to kind of sell these tokens for gold. And it's just marrying them up. And instead of the third-party scalper, instead of the RMT bot company that's also running a risk of getting your account banned or stealing your account or stealing your credit card information, instead, Blizzard said, we'll remove all that risk. And then whatever margin they were making, we're going to make some of that margin. So a token is worth 1 month's subscription. So it's a $15 value, and you pay like $20 for a token. So they're making $5 on this side. And then on the other side, you've got a token that's, for me to buy a token, it's 200,000 gold. And if I sell a token, I only get back 180,000 gold or whatever the math is. So there's 20,000 gold just being deleted from the market. So like they're just deleting in-game value and they're making real life money, and that's happening simultaneously. So as far as like how tokens work, they're just affecting, like they're scraping a little money off the top, and they're actually like removing inflation from the economy, assuming people would do the farming either way. There are some people that only farm because the token system exists, but if we just assume that it's the exact same amount of gold either way, they're actually removing gold from the economy in that transaction.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how this benefits them in like an NFT way, because the gold itself is in a big mixed pot with legitimately earned gold.
Right. So then the question is that does that like in WoW's case, is that them also then endorsing a pay to win mindset where I can come in, spend money, and in some degree of my own definition of winning, win?
So the pay to win has nothing to do with the token. The pay to win has to do with, can I buy progression? And it doesn't matter what you buy it with. If you could buy it with in-game gold and they didn't have a token, it would still frustrate people. If you could buy it from the cash shop and there was no token, it would still frustrate people. It has to do everything with, can I get in a car and drive to the end of the marathon and get the medal? It doesn't matter if I did it with gold or with cash or I owned my own car. What matters is we agreed to a foot race and somebody's not doing it with their feet. That's what matters. That's the problem with pay to win at its fundamental understanding, is now we look at everybody with a medal and I say, one day I'd love to earn one of those medals. And I appreciate and respect the people who have earned those medals. And I am somebody who likes to help other people earn those medals because I'm really good at getting those medals or whatever. And then you've got this other group running a bus service that's taking the highway alongside the marathon. That's where pay to win is a problem. The token, in my opinion, is not the fundamental flaw. You could have a token and then not have bind on equip items that are super high item level, and there's no pay to win. Like it doesn't, I don't care. And as far as people buying clears, that's always been happening, even if that's against terms of service. So like, I don't really necessarily equate that. I think the issue for me is like, what are they getting for it? Like if I can just buy the items off the auction house, that's incredibly frustrating. Then they don't even have to go into the content. They don't even have to zone in. Like if they can just go in and just buy the ultimate weapons off of the market board with gil that they can buy from the lodestone, that's where that gets really frustrating. Can they buy the equivalent of progression just outright?